Tonight, anti-mandate protests continue to impact Ontario border crossings. It's now hurting the province's auto industry.
There potentially could be, shut down for an entire week, and then we would be on layoff.
The way this ends, very simply, is to end the mandates, period.
With trucks backed up at the Canada-U.S. border, some automakers are now idling production lines. Plus,
making remarkable improvement in all of the key metrics in Ontario.
Contact sports and music can resume in schools, and the province will also look at whether other pandemic measures can soon be lifted. And Elnaz Hashtamiri was abducted nearly a month ago. Now police have charged her ex-boyfriend with criminal harassment. The City of Windsor is going to court to ask for an injunction to end the blockade of the Ambassador Bridge. The link between Windsor and Detroit is one of the most economically important crossings in all of North America. Chris Ensing has the latest from the border tonight.
More than $300 million in daily trade blocked from crossing North America's busiest international border by a blockade that won't budge.
Do not back down.
This minister was charged for violating COVID-19 restrictions in 2020. He led protesters in prayer this morning and explains what he wants for this to end.
The Ford government needs to end the mandates and relinquish emergency powers. And the Prime Minister needs to open the borders so people can go back and forth whether they're unvaccinated or not.
Protests shut down the bridge entirely today. These vehicles enough to block the lone entrance to the United States, trapping trucks for hours.
You're doing it for yourselves. Because if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have anything you own. You wouldn't have any clothes, food, gas in your car, blah, blah, blah. I'm used to waiting, but this is getting ridiculous.
I support these guys 100%. In the long run, it's going to pay off for everybody. I know people are losing their job because of this, and it's hurting everybody, but we've been hurting for the last 2 years. What difference is a little longer going to make, and hopefully we all benefit from it.
Demonstrators say this is the only way to get attention. This pastor saying mandates that health officials say save lives have harmed people's mental health. His message to auto workers out of work with the bridge closed.
If they can't handle 4 or 5 days, my heart goes out to anybody now that's laid off for a couple days. They're going to be taken care of. But think of the thousands, even millions, who have been affected by this the last 2 years.
This Windsor truck driver on a lone protest against the blockade. He said he once blocked the bridge himself in the 70s, but says this one needs to end.
You can't promote freedom. You can't fight for freedom if you're stealing freedom.
Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
Demonstration has now been paralyzing downtown Ottawa for 2 weeks. Police say there they've had some success reducing the number of protesters in the capital, and some conservatives who have been publicly supporting protesters are now changing their tune. Ashley Burke has the latest on calls for the protest to end.
It's not just downtown Ottawa hit by protests. This morning, the airport targeted by dozens of vehicles attempting to snarl traffic.
It's a parade.
Pat King, a convoy leader from Alberta and provocateur, organized this rolling blockade because a federal mandate prevents the unvaccinated from flying.
I want to start a new airline called that. I want to call it Freedom Airlines. No vax, no mask, no problem.
Now King is musing about his next target, children.
Go to the schools and let the kids see the convoy.
Oh, there's a good one. We can go to all the schools.
A sense of menace 14 days into the demonstration. Now the Conservatives' interim leader, who publicly backed the protest, has changed her tone.
To all of you who are taking part in the protests, I believe the time has come for you to take down the barricades, stop the disruptive action, and come together.
Candice Bergen also says the government should give protesters what they want, an end to all pandemic mandates, and demanded a timeline from the Prime Minister.
Is he saying he's not going to do anything until 100% of Canadians are vaccinated?
But you know what helps lift restrictions? Do you know what helps move beyond lockdowns? Vaccinations.
Jeff Fulton has been sleeping in his truck for 11 days and says there's only one person who can end this.
This could be ended so easily by our Prime Minister actually speaking to people and being a leader.
Ottawa's police chief says the key to ending this demonstration, to clearing out these trucks, is more resources. The federal public safety minister says that additional RCMP are on their way, but wouldn't say how many officers or when they'll arrive. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Opposition parties are calling on the Ford government to do more to end the protests. They want the province to use regulations around licensing and insurance to put pressure on demonstrators. Lorna Redekop explains.
I am absolutely insisting that we immediately recall the legislature.
Given that protest tactics in Ottawa are heating up, with schools and reportedly the 911 system targeted, the opposition wants tougher penalties brought in.
Is the Premier prepared to act around licensing or around insurance? Licensing and insurance are tools we have as legislators. Are we prepared to use them? Because it would seem to me this convoy is breaking the law and they're doing it with impunity.
Today, in a provincial emergency management meeting, opposition politicians begged the province to do more. With all the extra police officers, one Liberal MPP pointed to a change in the Police Services Act. As of 3 years ago, organizations can be charged for extra costs.
I think it would be a very effective tool to send a direct message to the organizers, who are getting tons of foreign money coming in. But what I fail to understand is why that tool is not enforced and why we aren't using it right now.
They expected to be questioning the Solicitor General. She didn't attend.
Minister Jones, as I'm sure you can all appreciate, is working very closely with her counterparts both in Ottawa, Windsor, and federally.
But she also wasn't at a meeting with all three levels of government on the blockades, missing for the third time. A provincial source telling CBC News the trilateral table doesn't accomplish anything. The province says OPP are involved and the Ministry of Transportation. But with Ottawa, it's the local police force in charge.
But let's be very, very clear. The protest leaders in Ottawa are asking for the overthrow of the government. I might not necessarily like everything that Prime Minister Trudeau has done, but he won an election and he has the right to govern.
Late this afternoon, the Premier's office said the Attorney General made a court application concerning remaining online fundraisers to the convoy, including Adopt a Trucker and Give, Send, Go, that would prohibit them from giving out money. According to the Premier's office, the order was granted. Another protest is expected in Toronto this weekend. The Police Services Board held a closed-door meeting on how it'll handle it. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
There are new developments in the abduction of a woman in Wasaga Beach. Elnaz Hashtamiri was taken from a home there last month by 3 men posing as police officers. She hasn't been seen since. CBC News has learned Hashtamiri's ex-boyfriend has been charged with criminally harassing her in the weeks leading up to her abduction. Ryan Patrick Jones has reaction now from her family.
There's only one question: where is she? There is only one desire: bring her home. That's all we want.
Elnaz Hashtamiri's uncle doesn't want his name used, as he says his family continues to live in fear.
It's impossible to describe the feeling that the family is enduring right now. Frustration, crying, sadness, worrying, anxiety.
It's been 28 days since 37-year-old Hashtamiri was abducted from this home in Wasaga Beach, where she was staying with relatives. Police say 3 men posing as officers forced her into a stolen white Lexus SUV, which was later recovered by investigators. At the time of the abduction, she'd been concerned for her safety after being badly beaten by 2 masked men in December. They attacked her in this parking garage as she tried to leave her Richmond Hill condo. As CBC Toronto first reported, the OPP have charged 34-year-old Montreal resident Mohamed Lilo with criminal harassment. Lilo was Hashtamiri's ex-boyfriend. The couple broke up in October, and he allegedly continued to harass her.
I know through the end, she was single. She didn't have a relationship. I know she was very much worried about her life. She knew she's gonna get hurt.
Police continue to search for Hashtamiri's abductors and other attackers. Lilo hasn't been charged in those incidents.
To pursue this.
The family lawyer, Devin Baines, isn't satisfied with the efforts of police so far.
We'd like to see results, and we'd like to see some answers. I'm sure the public is startled by the lack of information that's coming from the police.
The family has since turned to private investigators to help locate Hashtamiri, and with each passing day, their concerns for her safety only grow. Lilo is currently free on bail and is set to make a court appearance later this month. Ryan Patrick Jones, CBC News, Toronto.
Residents in the Beaches waking this morning to learn someone stole a fire truck overnight from an area fire station.
My first thought was, how do you operate a fire truck? Does it have a clutch, or you need some type of special license?
Sure you do. The truck was taken from the Queen and Woodbine area just before 5 a.m. Police say someone broke in and drove the vehicle through the closed bay doors. Part of the door was found across the street. The truck was later found on Unwin Avenue near Cherry Beach. A 28-year-old woman has been arrested and is facing numerous charges. I know you're smiling, Colin, but nobody was hurt. But who steals a fire truck?
Well, I know that story, right? We don't know all the details yet, and it just makes your mind go. With 50 new stories about what was happening there. Yes, the details, they will come out in time. Let's give you some details on your weather forecast here. And we are looking at a system, another Alberta clipper. Boy, what a pattern we're into coming through tomorrow. So some light, wet snow, then turning into a mix with rain showers. The wind's strong. They've been a little breezy today. We'll find them quite gusty at times tomorrow. And then they change to the northwest. And that means Saturday, the cold air will be coming in, but not cold tomorrow. And one more mild day. Those temperatures, though, you're going to notice it as they drop. We'll likely hit our highs for the day Saturday early in the day, and then it gets colder as we get into the afternoon hours. So current temperatures, looking at these readings, we're only going to fall a couple of degrees from where we're at now, thanks to that wind flow and that incoming system. So at this time, these are the sustained winds, not the gusts, but I'm going to show you where some of those gusts are going to be going. So mostly cloud cover that we've experienced. You can see a few flurries that are popping up here, but this main system here, this is the Alberta clipper that's headed our way, and it does move at a clip. It comes pretty quickly. So by the early morning hours, getting into some of that wet snow into southwestern Ontario, then through the morning, possible the early morning commute could be kind of slick for the GTA, but more so that we'll be seeing that developing through the morning towards midday. But that light wet snow, just a trace to a few centimeters, and then it changes, especially close to the lake shores, it changes into that mix with some rainfall. So kind of slushy at times. It's still going to slow things down on the roadways. We know that happens. Behind this, we will get eventually some clearing on Saturday and get into some sunshine, especially later in the day, even though the colder air will accompany it. So we'll look at those snowfall totals, more significant up into the snow belt, but not for us. The winds, those will be a little bit on the significant side. At times, some of those gusts could be over 70 kilometers an hour. -2 tonight, 3 degrees. The high for tomorrow, but like I said, it's the last in the mild days until mid next week. So that cold air coming in, we could get some warnings coming up on the weekend, Dwight.
We'll enjoy that. We'll take a 3 on a Friday. Thank you, Colette. Yep. 12 Canadian doctors is calling on the federal government to remove what they're calling unnecessary COVID-19 travel restrictions, including on-arrival pre-departure PCR tests.
When 10 to 30% of your local population already got COVID-19 over the last 2 months, it really, becomes a little bit futile to try to prevent it coming over the border, recognizing there's going to be a risk with traveling, but there's going to be an equal risk, the second you leave this airport and you go into your own homes, into a high-risk setting.
The group says Canada's current restrictions are out of step with other countries worldwide and are leading to unnecessary travel delays and financial penalties. Music and high-contact sports are being given the green light to resume in Ontario schools, and with COVID cases and hospitalizations continuing to decline, Ontario's top doctor says other pandemic measures may be lifted sooner than planned. Chris Glover now with the latest on that.
The evidence is showing we're making remarkable improvement in all of the key metrics.
Ontario's chief medical officer says with COVID hospitalizations down and vaccination rates higher, non-urgent and non-emergent surgeries and procedures can begin going ahead. It's game on for school extracurriculars, effective immediately as well.
It's an issue of equity. And it's an issue of access.
The move comes after many pointed out how unfair it was that community-based sports for kids restarted a couple of weeks ago.
I did see the conflict of community settings opening up and not having them available to students in the school setting.
But 2 years into this pandemic and even debating COVID-19 public health measures has become a full-time sport.
I really don't think it should be as strict as it is when it comes to mandates.
I don't mind wearing the mask. And I think the protocols are okay.
Going slow is the best.
I
Well, what do you think?
I think faster.
CBC News has learned Doug Ford's cabinet is being presented with options for speeding up removing capacity limits. And today, Dr. Kieran Moore says proof of vaccination requirements and mask mandates are under review as well. The rethink comes as COVID protocols elsewhere from the UK to Alberta are being dramatically removed or scaled back. And police in Toronto are preparing for an anticipated protest against all COVID protocols coming for Queen's Park.
Without any external pressure, because I don't really watch the news too much, we are absolutely committed to removing public health measures.
While Dr. Moore says he's ignoring all external pressure.
Is there an election coming up?
There is a
Exactly.
A man has been found guilty in the killings of an Ajax mother and 2 of her children. Corey Fenn was convicted today in an Oshawa court in the March 2018 murders of 30-year-old Karamissa Pejanovsky, her 15-year-old son Roy, and her 13-year-old daughter Vanilia. The 39-year-old Fenn defended himself at the trial. He argued he could not be guilty of murder as he was not mentally present at the time of the killings because of cocaine psychosis. Fenn faces an automatic life sentence. A hearing will take place next month to determine how long he has to serve in prison before he can apply for parole. Advocates are calling for change following what police say is a concerning uptick in violent crime among youth. 4 out of 5 people arrested in the recent shooting death of a Toronto man are all minors. One is just 14. Natalie Kalada has more.
It is very disturbing, especially the ages of these individuals.
Police say 19-year-old Malachi Elijah Bainbridge was ambushed and shot multiple times. 4 of the 5 people now charged in relation to his murder are minors, the youngest 14 years old. Police also seized several loaded guns.
A second 16-year-old male again was arrested and charged with accessory after the fact murder. This male also is facing 16 firearm charges. The young generation really need to understand and make these right decisions in life.
Advocates say it's not that simple. Since the start of the school year, 7 minors have been accused in homicide cases in Toronto alone.
This is not normal. The kids are shooting each other.
If it takes a village to raise a child, then according to some, the village is failing.
We need to be accountable. The people who are taking the money to do the programming or whatever, they need to revise. There is something wrong the way they are doing, and they have to revise and look at it in a way that it has impactful for the society.
According to Statistics Canada, between 2019 and 2020, despite a drop in youth crime overall, youth homicide rates across Canada increased by 30%.
Their friend died. Their classmate died. The community members they know them, they were mentoring them, and they died, and nobody's reaching out to those young people. They are taking the way they express it through the violence for them.
We really got to shift the lens and start asking ourselves, how did society feel these young people?
Adam Ellis is working on a number of community programs with the Streets Institute to disrupt street-related violence in the GTA.
We've underfunded communities for decades. There's consensus now that, the police leading this cause or leading the policy with respect to disrupting street violence or gang violence as they see it hasn't worked. I think it's all about investing in community, putting the community at the front with respect to, working to develop programs and policies.
Natalie Kalada, CBC News, Toronto.